Patrick Mahomes is the best NFL player of all time, and by the end of this video, you might just agree with me, and this stat right here might just prove it to you, because the goal of football is to win. So let's look at the best quarterback win percentages from players that have started since 1980. You have your all-time great quarterbacks like John Elway, Peyton Manning, and Joe Montana, and even though they don't have many games played, even Lamar Jackson and Jimmy Garoppolo are in the top 4 because they've simply played winning football for the past 4-ish years. Then with no surprise at all, the top 2 are Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. Brady playing over 300 games and being second is absolutely absurd, but you cannot deny the facts. Put any quarterback on the field out of these quarterbacks here and Mahomes has the highest chance to win. I mean, man's just barely ever loses. He has 22-3 versus AFC West opponents, which is absurd. He simply owns this division. He also has the highest team points per game by a quarterback since 1950 with over 30 points per game. He also has put up 16 games with 40 plus points since 2018. That is 6 more than anyone else in that time frame. Those are some random facts that are kind of fun, but I'm not just the random stats man here. We gotta go deeper into this. And also, I have to keep it real. Mahomes isn't perfect.
And it's mishandled by Sky Moore. And the Colts have recovered at the 4. Instead, back of the end zone, and it's caught for a touchdown. Chase McLaughlin's kick straightens out. Here he goes from the 20. He throws it to the end zone. The Colts have taken the lead. Throw it deep. Fires and intercepted on the deflection. And the Colts are going to upset the Kansas City Chiefs.
Mahomes does lose games. I mean, the Colts at the time were 0-2 and just got blown out the game before to the Jaguars. That loss was embarrassing, but this was just a fluke, because losing doesn't happen often for Mahomes, and especially not at the start of the season in September like this loss to the Colts was. In the first 4 games of each season, which is usually September, Mahomes is 17-3. One of those losses I just said was against the Colts, and the other 2 were back-to-back close losses to 2 of the better teams in the league last year. Mans didn't lose in the first quarter of the season for the first 3 years of his career. Then last year, he finally showed signs of being human, and then he lost one time this year. I mean, Mans has outscored opponents 660 to 403, or 33 points per game to 20 points per game in the first quarter of the season in his career. In fact, he's the best quarterback ever in the first 4 games of the season. He's played through the first 4 games 5 times now, and here are his stats through those 20 games. He's 17-3 with 308 yards per game, 3 touchdowns per game, and less than a half an interception per game. And he has a quarterback passer rating of 117.7, which is unheard of with a 20-game sample. And here are, in my opinion, the best quarterbacks ever, and here are the stats they averaged per game in the first 4 games of each season in their careers. I mean, it doesn't get more straightforward than this. Patrick Mahomes averages the most touchdowns per game, most yards per game, least interceptions per game, best passer rating, and has the best win percentage than any other of the best quarterbacks in NFL history within the first 4 games of each season. He averages 117 passer rating, and second place is 103 passer rating with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, just looking at these stats, Mahomes is easily the best starter to a season of all time. But there's just one thing wrong here. Because true, Mahomes is insanely good at the start of seasons, but most of these players have played 100 to 200 more games than he has, so the per game stats are in favor of Mahomes here. Alright, well, how about a stat that keeps in mind how many games he's played? How about the fact that he took the fewest games to throw for 20,000 yards? It took Mahomes 67 games to do so, with the next closest being Stafford, who took 4 extra games. But those are just random big numbers, and my small brain doesn't understand it well. So let's look at another stat that is easier to visualize. 5 touchdown games are pretty uncommon. The player with the most 5 touchdown games is Drew Brees, who had 11 5-touchdown games in his 287-game career. The next most is Tom Brady, who has 9 in 319 games. Then Peyton Manning also had 9 in even less games than Brady played. Then there's a drop-off to Big Ben, who had 6, and Dan Marino also had 6 games. Keep in mind, this is the all-time list for most 5-touchdown games in a career. This should take a few hundred games to make the list. Oh wait. Patrick Mahomes already has 6 5-touchdown games in 64 games. Are you kidding me? He's on pace to pass Drew Brees for the most 5-touchdown games in an entire career in just 128 games, which is still less than half of the games Drew Brees played in his career. If Mahomes plays as many games as this saggy old man, then at this exact pace, he would have 18 games with 5+ touchdowns. I mean, it's just ridiculous. What he's been doing is just unheard of. But notice, though, how I am not talking about the big career totals like most passing yards in a career or most passing touchdowns in a career. Well, that's because good old Tom Brady quite literally has a lock on all of those records. I'm not talking about the big career total numbers or the amount of Super Bowl championships Patrick Mahomes has won, because those stats are used for the GOAT argument. Tom Brady is the greatest football player ever for the foreseeable future, and that's just a fact. But I was never arguing who's the GOAT. The title of this video and what I've been trying to prove to you is that Mahomes is the best NFL player of all time, not the greatest, because there's a big difference. Greatness is when you have almost double the Super Bowl wins of second place all time. Greatness is when you are the second youngest quarterback to win the Super Bowl and also the oldest quarterback to win the Super Bowl. Greatness is when you are the undisputed GOAT of the sport. But the best NFL player is when, if you had the first overall pick to build a team and you can choose any NFL player in the history of the sport, who are you choosing? Because your first thought is the player you think is the best ever. The best ever is if you suited up for one game, which player is giving you the best chance to win that game? I'm not talking about longevity. I'm not talking about a career. I'm talking about a peak. A place in a player's career that you call their prime. You always hear he's in his prime. But who has had the best prime of all time? Well, Patrick Mahomes has played for 4 years, so let's find the best 4-year stretch of games a quarterback has ever played. And so, I searched. I searched for the best 4-year stretches any quarterback has ever had from the start of the NFL to 2021, which is the last full season of NFL play. As I was searching, I found out that the benchmark for an amazing 4-year stretch is about 18,000 passing yards. Because 18,000 passing yards in total through 4 years has only happened a few times. Only 6 players in NFL history have ever accomplished this. So here are the 6 best quarterback passing peaks in NFL history. These are the only players to put up 18,000 plus yards in 4 seasons, and their best 4-year spans they did it. The best record goes to Patrick Mahomes. The best completion percentage goes to Drew Brees, then Matt Ryan, and then Mahomes. The most passing yards in a 4-year stretch ever goes to Drew Brees, then Stafford, and then Matt Ryan barely edges out over Mahomes. Then the most touchdowns is Drew Brees, and then Mahomes, and then no one else is even close. The least interceptions goes to Mahomes, and the best passer rating goes to Patrick by a landslide. Has Patrick Mahomes had the best peak we have ever seen in football? Maybe. It's close. Drew Brees also had an impressive run. It's definitely between either Patrick Mahomes' last 4 years or Drew Brees from 2011 to 2014. Notice how randomly 3 out of the 6 of these were from 2011 to 2014. And also how Peyton Manning, who's thought to be one of the best ever, never even had 18,000 passing yards in 4 seasons. And this whole peak thing is cool and all, but there might be one thing that's even more impressive here. When researching the best 4-year spans, Drew Brees just kept showing up. He had over 20,000 passing yards from 2011 to 2014, but he also had over 18,000 passing yards in 4 years from 2006 to 2009, then 2007 to 2010, then 2008 to 2011, and so on and so on and so on. I realize these are all overlapping years, but man's put up crazy historic numbers every year from 2006 to 2018, making 10 different 4-year spans that elapsed 18,000 yards. Matt Ryan did it 7 times, Brady only 5, Stafford twice, and Phillip Rivers once, and Mahomes also did it once. This whole video, I've been trying to prove why I think Mahomes is the best QB we have ever seen using stats that aren't affected by good longevity. But you cannot deny how Drew Brees and even Matt Ryan held such a high level of excellency for so many years in a row. You could say Drew Brees held one of the best peaks in NFL history for 13 years straight. And that's fantastic and all, but the thing is is that Mahomes has only played for 4 years. Not a single one of these peaks came close to being that quarterback's first 4 years in the league. Mahomes has played 4 years, and those 4 have been one of the best stretches ever. He has so much time left, and the rest of these players all got better towards the middle of their career. And with all that said and done, and a for sure top 6, maybe even top 1 4-year peak in NFL history, the real question is, after seeing all these stats, is Patrick Mahomes the best quarterback we have ever seen? Well, you tell me. I've laid out my argument. Because for now, Tom Brady is the greatest. But with the first overall pick in the all-time NFL draft, I will be selecting the magical Houdini at quarterback himself.
Imagine if Peyton Manning got even better under pressure, or if Aaron Rodgers' skills were pitched a little higher. That's Patrick Mahomes.
There's a lot of great traits about him as a player and him as a leader.
Mahomes can come at you from every which angle.
Ball from his shoestrings around a guy. That's unreal.
Just stop it. We haven't seen this.
Patrick Mahomes. At this moment, not the greatest, not the most accomplished, he's the best player who ever lived.
Patrick Mahomes.